Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something uh, pretty fundamental
Yeah,
to learning in general.
absolutely.
We've got this excerpt from a dissertation
Yeah,
about education that really kind of gets into
it's a fascinating one.
what is knowledge.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
it sounds like such a basic question,
You'd think so, right?
but it's not.
It's not.
It's
Huh.
not when you really start to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, when you really break it down, what does it mean to know something?
Right. Like, is it just having facts?
That's part of it.
Is it
But it's more than that.
skills?
It's skills, it's understanding.
Understand.
It's even, how we apply those things.
Oh, application, yeah.
Yeah, and the dissertation we're looking at today, it jumps into this whole thing about
Oh, yeah.
epistemologies.
Okay, epistemologies.
Yeah.
That's a big word.
It is a mouthful.
What is that?
Basically, it's like the study of knowledge, like the philosophy of knowledge.
Got it.
So, like, how do we know what we know?
I see. So it's not just the facts themselves. It's like
Exactly.
the way.
Yeah, the framework. Like,
Yeah.
what are the ways that we come to believe something is true?
So like, are we talking? Is this like trusting your gut? Is this trusting
That could be one way, right?
experts?
Is it? Like, intuition is definitely part of it for some people.
Yeah.
But also, like you said, relying on experts
Right.
or tradition or, like,
Right.
scientific evidence.
Oh, interesting.
These are all different epistemologies.
So different ways of knowing.
Different ways of knowing, yeah.
Okay, so then how does all of this
Yeah.
actually like play out
Good question.
in a classroom?
That's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah.
So this excerpt, it really focuses on how these different epistemologies
Wow.
can lead to totally different ways of teaching
Oh, interesting.
and designing a curriculum.
I see.
So think about it, right? Like, if you have a history class, that's all about memorizing dates and names.
Okay, yeah.
That kind of assumes that knowledge is just like a collection of facts.
All right, just like, just got to get them in your head.
Yeah, cram it in, regurgitate it for the test.
Right.
But then you could have a history class that's all about, like, historical thinking,
Okay.
debating,
Right.
analyzing different sources, like primary sources.
Yeah, thinking like a historian.
Exactly. So their knowledge is more about the process.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's not just the what, it's the how.
So it's like less about just knowing all the facts
Exactly.
and more about knowing how to.
Think like a historian, how to analyze,
Yeah.
how to come to your own conclusions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Two very different approaches driven by different ideas about what knowledge even is.
That's fascinating. And I can even think back to my own,
Yeah.
schooling, and some of my favorite classes
Yeah.
were definitely the ones that were.
More about the process.
Yeah. Like I remember this one literature class,
Oh, yeah.
and it wasn't about
Right.
like, did we memorize who wrote what and like all the
Yeah.
symbolism.
Yeah.
It was about
Right.
really delving into the text
Interpretation.
and like
Yeah.
having these great discussions.
Right. And like grappling with the big ideas.
Exactly.
It wasn't about right or wrong answers. It was about like the thinking.
And it makes me think like, the teacher
Yeah.
clearly had a very different idea
Absolutely.
of what knowledge should be than some other teachers.
Totally. And it makes a huge difference in how you teach
Yeah.
and how students engage with the material.
And the excerpt, it really talks about
Yeah.
critical thinking.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Critical thinking is key. It's
Yeah.
like, it's not enough to just passively take in information.
Right.
You have to actually do something with it.
Right. Like question it.
Question it,
Yeah.
analyze it,
Yeah.
form your own opinions, challenge assumptions.
Right. So it's not just like
Yeah.
memorizing a bunch of stuff.
Exactly. It's about actively constructing knowledge,
Yeah.
not just receiving it.
Yeah. So is the goal of school then
Yeah.
to kind of create these students that are just like,
Yeah.
vessels of information?
Right. Like little sponges just soaking it up.
Yeah. Or is it to really teach them how to think?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, ideally, we want students who can think critically,
Yeah.
solve problems,
Be independent.
be independent, adapt to new situations.
Yeah.
That's what's going to serve them well in life, right?
Right.
Not just regurgitating facts.
And this excerpt, it also talks about how
Yeah.
knowledge isn't like
It's not static, yeah.
created in a vacuum.
Right. It's influenced by culture, by society.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's not like this objective thing that
Yeah.
exists independently of us. Like, what counts as knowledge can change
Right.
depending on where you are.
Yeah, or when you are even.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Historically,
Yeah.
what's been considered knowledge has changed so much.
It's so true. I mean, have you ever had that moment where you learn something
Oh, yeah.
that just
The
completely,
blows your mind.
yeah, like changes your
Blows your whole perspective.
entire worldview?
Totally.
I remember learning about quantum physics
Oh, wow.
for
Yeah.
the first time,
That'll do it.
and I was just like,
Right.
"What?"
It's like, wait, reality doesn't work the way I thought it did?
Right. It blew my mind
Totally.
and made me realize that
Yeah.
everything I thought I knew was just kind of like,
Right. It's like one tiny slice
yeah,
of a much bigger, more complex picture.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just like one tiny example
Right. There are countless examples.
of how what we think of as knowledge is just it's just based on our limited perspective.
It's all about perspective, and the excerpt gives a really interesting example.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it talks about how
Okay.
in some indigenous cultures,
Uh-huh.
oral storytelling
Okay.
is like the main way that knowledge is passed down.
Right, through generations.
Exactly. It's a living, breathing tradition.
So that's a very different way
Totally different.
than
Yeah.
writing stuff down.
Right. Like in Western cultures, we often prioritize
Right.
written documents, empirical evidence.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Right. Like we want to see it in black and white.
Right. Yeah. Show me the data.
Show me the data, prove it to me.
Yeah.
But in oral storytelling, knowledge is constantly evolving.
Oh, that's cool.
It's being reshaped with each telling.
Wow. So it's really like
Yeah.
a living thing.
Exactly. It's alive. It's dynamic.
That's such a cool way to think about knowledge.
Right. It challenges our assumptions
Yeah.
about what knowledge even is.
Okay, so we've got all these different ways of knowing.
Right. Different epistemologies.
And then this excerpt throws in
What's that?
this other layer
Okay.
of
Hit me with it.
learning styles.
Oh, yes. Learning styles, that's a whole other can of worms.
Right, because not everyone
Right. Not everyone learns the same way.
learns the same way.
Exactly.
So how out of those,
come in.
that's where things get really interesting in the classroom, right?
Right.
Because if you've got, let's say,
Yeah.
a classroom full of kids,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are visual learners,
Okay.
right? They need to see things, pictures, diagrams.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some are auditory learners. They learn best by hearing
Ooh, right.
lectures, discussions.
Yeah.
And then you've got your kinesthetic learners, hands-on.
Oh, yeah. They got
They got to be doing stuff, moving around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you, as a teacher,
Right. Reach all those different learners.
yeah, how do you
It's a challenge.
And that's where understanding learning styles
Yeah.
can be really helpful.
So, like, as a teacher, if you know that, okay, I've got a lot of visual learners in this class.
Right. Then you might
I'm going to use more
visuals, exactly.
charts, graphs,
Diagrams, yeah.
all of that.
Things that they can see and connect with.
Yeah. And then if you have
And if you've got those auditory learners,
more auditory learners,
we're going to incorporate more
Wow.
discussions, maybe some
or
lectures.
maybe
Yeah.
music or something like that.
Oh, yeah, music can be a great way
Yeah.
to engage those learners.
And then the hands-on learners, that's
Those are the ones who need to be
that's always
up and moving, yeah.
fun for me. I like that.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a kinesthetic learner myself.
So you would do more like
Yeah, like experiments,
Experiments.
projects,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Building things, creating things.
field trips, maybe.
Field trips, exactly. Get them out there,
Yeah.
experiencing things firsthand.
Right. So it's really about
It's about tailoring your teaching
yeah.
to the needs of your students.
And I think that kind of gets to this
Yeah.
idea of
What is it?
meaningful learning.
Yes. Meaningful learning, that's huge.
Right. Because it's not just about
It's not just about cramming information into their heads.
it's about helping them.
It's about making it relevant to
Yeah.
their lives, to their interests.
And I think that kind of gets to the big
The big what?
question that this excerpt
Yeah.
poses at the end, which is like,
Okay, lay it on us.
how do you cultivate a love of learning?
The $1,000,000 question in
Yeah.
education, right?
Yeah, right.
How do we get kids to actually enjoy learning?
Because it's not always
It's not always easy,
easy. Yeah.
especially in a system that often prioritizes,
Standardized tests, rote memorization.
right, just like getting through the material.
Yeah, checking boxes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't foster a love of learning.
So how do you do it?
Well, I think it starts with
Yeah.
creating a learning environment. That's all about curiosity,
Oh, okay.
open-mindedness,
Right.
the joy of discovery.
So it's less about
It's less about the specific content
Yeah.
and more about the process.
The approach.
Yeah, the approach, the mindset.
Yeah.
If we can get kids excited about learning,
Yeah.
about exploring new ideas,
Yeah.
that's when the real magic happens.
It's amazing how much
I know, right?
this one little excerpt
This little excerpt has sparked so many big ideas.
has really kind of like
Yeah.
opened up all these
It's like opening a door
different ways
to a whole new world.
of thinking about knowledge.
Exactly.
We've talked about like
We've covered
different ways of knowing,
epistemologies, the influence of culture,
the learning styles.
importance of meaningful learning.
It's really
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But it makes you realize, right,
yeah.
how complex education really is.
Yeah. It's not just about like
It's not just about textbooks and tests.
memorizing stuff.
It's about so much more than that.
It's about
Yeah.
shaping minds.
It's about shaping minds. It's about preparing them for a future
yeah. And
that we can't even fully predict.
it makes me think like
Yeah.
if knowledge is always
Always evolving?
changing,
Yeah.
how do we even prepare students?
Well, we prepare them for a world
yeah.
where the answers might be constantly changing.
Yeah. For a world
That's the challenge, isn't it?
that we can't even like
We can't even imagine.
imagine yet.
But that's also the exciting part,
That is exciting.
right? Because it means we have to be
Yeah.
flexible, adaptable,
Yeah.
open to new ideas.
And I think that's maybe like the key takeaway
Maybe isn't
from all of this.
right. Like, it's not about having all the answers. It's
Yeah,
about
yeah.
being able to learn, to adapt.
To ask the right questions.
Exactly. To be lifelong learners.
So what resonated most with you
Yeah.
in this deep dive?
What are you still thinking about?
What questions are you still like
Wrestling
with?
Let us know.
Yeah. Hit us up in the comments
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely, because this is just the beginning.
Yeah. There's so much more to explore here.
Always more to learn.
Always more to learn. That's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it.
All right. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
See you next time.
See you next time.